Yesterday was the 54-person Road to Nationals event here in Portland, Oregon, USA at Gongaii Games. In the end, it was Tristan Farmer on Victor Goldman that left victorious. See how witty I am. But today, let's run down the event itself from start to finish, breaking down the field, the top cut, and all the awesome stuff in between.
A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando.
Hey there, my flesh and blood friends. Welcome back to Dice Commando and Go again for a early morning recap of yesterday's 54-person Road to Nationals event here in Portland, Oregon that I TO'd at Gongaii Games. So today we're going to be doing I want to do a recap of that, the whole event. So obviously we'll start with, the tactics and the stuff the kids want to know, like the field and the top 8. And the winner, it was already announced earlier that, Tristan Farmer took it down on Victor Goldman. Yes, there was an image flying around of Victor Goldman. That was an autocorrect error, but a humorous one. So you can also find Victor Goldman. That's actually the dentist in WTR, is Victor Goldman. All right. So anyway, all jokes aside, one of the things that people have been asking for, it is 6 a.m. in the morning, right? Just after 6 a.m., which means 8 hours after I got home last night. The event ended at about 9:45. I do have the deck lists. They're here, but we are not going through them, nor am I publishing them anytime soon because we are in the middle of RTN season, and there's actually an RTN today in about 4 hours from when I'm shooting this, and it's not cool to drop people's lists in the middle of the season. So I hear your requests. I've gotten a lot of them. Let's just put it that way. And we're not going to be going through the lists in this video. Okay, they will come at some point, but not right now. Okay, so if that's what you're here for, then I appreciate you tuning in, but there's not going to be any lists. All right, so let's go ahead and go into the main field. So this is the part that I was most excited about to see how this would break down. So this is the same template that I've used for many of our large events in the past. I've never before filled it up. Okay, this is the first time. It's pretty cool. I was actually getting pretty nervous. I was building it, and I was like, oh no, I'm going to run out of room and have to figure out a new template. So I got lucky on that one, but yes, we filled it up. That's a big, or I should say a wide field, right? We've had more than 54 players before, but again, I've never filled up the template in terms of how many heroes we've seen. All right, so one-armed Kayo, I'm calling him armed Kayo because there's only so much room on the thumbnail. 12 of them in the room. We had 4 Victors, 4 Boltyns, which surprised the hell out of me, 4 Azaleas, 3 Kassais, which actually surprised me on the low end. I thought there might be more Kassais, 3 Dromais, 3 Bravos, 3 Uzris, which actually surprised me, 2 Levias. The biggest surprise of the day for me was there were 2 Teklovosans, and they actually both did pretty well. Obviously, none made top cut, but they were doing, they were top tables. They were, because the kind of way I had it laid out, I had, table 1, never mind. I'm trying to explain in my head to you, but they were within the top 5, for one of them at least was on the top 3-4 tables, most of the day. Pretty impressed with that. Absolutely pretty impressed with that. Rhinar, 2 of them, 2 Kanos, 2 Dios, 2 Dorintheas, and then 1 each of Katsu, Phi, Dash, Riptide, Max Nitro, and Awakened Prism. And Justin Salmon on Awakened Prism made top 8. And again, it's nice to see him back on, or nice to see them back on a light illusionist. That's how I've always known them. All right, so going in then to I got to scroll over to it because nothing's in order because it's 6 a.m. Let's go to the top 8. So top 8 was Pankaj, that's Ethnic Smoke. He was on Golden Kassai. He took down the first place, going 6-0 in Swiss. Tristan Farmer was 5-1, losing to Pankaj in the final round. And you did not see that one because Pankaj had requested not be on stream until the top 8. So I did respect that. I always respect that. If people don't want to play on stream, they don't play on stream. Number 3 was Justin Salmon. 4 was Dylan Mangini on Armed Kayo. 5 was Spencer Heaps on Boltyn, and he had a really spicy deck. I'm really excited to. I'm gonna reach out and see if he wants to do an interview. That was pretty spicy deck. I was pretty impressed with that. Arthur Mills, always amazing on Azalea. Also would love to get an interview with Arthur many times coming. He's won events in Portland or at Gongaii in the past. Really, really, really good player. Tyler Biggs, also really good dude. Golden Kassai. And then Josh Lind came up from the Eugenes, I believe is where they're at, or somewhere near that, which is about 2 hours away from Portland. And Armed Kayo is what he was on. And I was going through and mentioning good people, but there was like everybody, like it was awesome. It was awesome. Tristan's a good dude, known as a guardian. He was walking into the event as I was setting up, and I was like, "You're on Victor today, aren't you?" And he's like, "I mean, yeah," because he played Oldhim and he plays Control, Fatigue, Bravo, so it's right up his alley. And Pankaj, always a good dude. All right. So that was the top 8. And then again, as I mentioned, and actually here's a picture of the top 8. All the good folks there, and I'll kind of overlay that in editing when I go through. And then, so while we go through the rest, I'm going to go ahead and bring up a slideshow. This will go through just some fun pictures I took of the day and around. So recapping the event itself, going into the main field, I kind of want to go back to that now that we've done the rundown. The KOs. So what's interesting about the KOs, right, is when you see a disparity in my opinion, when you see a disparity in a field like this, Nathan Dolman had come up to me about round 4, so his day was not going well for him, so he had dropped and he was kind of hanging out a bit, and we were talking, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm kind of surprised at the conversions of the KOs." And one of the problems when you have a field that has kind of this big of a split is that they kind of start eating themselves. Right. So I don't know that you can necessarily, this is one of those examples where conversion rate is not necessarily, when you're looking at KO, conversion rate's not necessarily great. And again, if you go look at the one Awakened Prism in the room who made top 8, 100% conversion rate, I don't think anybody's thinking she's necessarily the best meta hero in the meta. Right. So we have to be careful when we talk about conversion rates and stuff like that. And I thought this was a good idea. The things I was really overall impressed with, or I should say that took me overall, the decks I was consistently seeing at the top tables. There were a couple KOs up there. There was the one Victor up there. By and large, the Victor field did okay, good, not great, right, in terms of the whole Victor field. There was, I think, 2 Boltyns flying around. And when I say top tables, I'm talking roughly like the top, everyone kind of, if you're going through a 6-round tournament, by about round 2 or 3, it's the folks that are at about like the top 5 tables, right? And when I'm saying the top 5 tables, there's 2 games per table, right? So I'm talking like the top 8 to 10 tables. I guess that's a better way to describe this, right? There were 2 Boltyns flying around those top 8 to 10 tables or so. We saw the Levia do. There was a Levia that was on stream a couple of times, doing very, very well. So that was fun to watch. The Katsu, I never actually saw any Katsu. Adam Hill was on Dash, and he had kind of a rough day in terms of draws and going to time with his pistol dash. So I think that's unfortunate because he's a very good Dash player, and his deck's pretty good. So I would have liked to have seen in a different environment how that would have flushed out. But overall, it was kind of those fun heroes that you didn't really expect necessarily to be at the top that were fun to watch, right? Again, like the Boltyns, the Azaleas, and I was a little surprised, honestly, with I didn't see as much Kassai as I expected to see, right? Aside from, I mean, I guess to be fair, we put 2 of them in the top 8. So actually, I take that back. We put 2 of them in the top 8. So I take that back. That's fair. All right. Other things for the day, and this is all, again, I'll let the slideshow just roll. This is I was very pleased with yesterday in terms of the logistics and stuff like that. This is the first time that, like, the stream, I thought, well, if you didn't check out the stream, it's up it's either on live or it's posted at this point. YouTube's got to do its spooling thing. Go check it out. It was just about 9 hours worth of content. Obviously, there's breaks in between, so you can fast forward at this point. But I was very pleased with that. The problem I usually have at Gongaii is they have a skylight, but the weather was so cruddy yesterday that it kind of took that out of the problem with the skylight is not only that it adds light to the room, but it adds moving light to the room, right, with the sun. But it was so nasty yesterday. It was clouds all day. So it removed that, and the stream honestly looked pretty good in terms of the grand scheme of trying to do a stream in a warehouse. We had a lot of viewers over the course of the day, so I was pretty pleased. I was really pleased with that overall. So the event ran really smooth. Phil, my head judge, is the judge that I use every time if I can. He's absolutely phenomenal. Now that him and I've worked together 3 or 4 times, we've really got our own groove. And again, I was super pleased with it. So hopefully everyone who was there shares that opinion as well. The one bummer, which is, from a logistics standpoint, is that we did sell out so we have room for 60, and we did sell out the event, and then we had a whole bunch of drops day of. So we ended up at 54, which is fine. 54 is still a respectable number, but I need to figure out somehow how to, I don't know what to do. If anybody's a TO out there and you have recommendations on how to avoid that, right? Because when people know we fill up our event, so people sign up really, really, really early, and then life happens, right? Life happens. It's to everybody. You get sick, whatever it may be. It's not a problem. But now we have people who didn't get to sign up and probably didn't come because they didn't get to sign up, and we could have seated them. So I'm not really sure what to do about that whole thing. So if anybody has any recommendations, let me know. But overselling the event's not the right answer, right? Doing it like they do an airplane is not the right answer, because I physically don't have places to seat people, and I'm not going to wait list. Like that's, I'm not going to bump people and give them a voucher for a later tournament like the airlines do. Like we're not going to do that, right? So it is what it is at this point. But all right, the next part, let's go through the top 8 bracket. So we had, right, Ponca, I already ran down the top 8. So what you see now is the bracket itself. But the games went, for the most part, they went kind of as you would expect them to go, right? You see that Ponkash went all the way through at the number 1. Tristan Farmer went all the way through at the number 2, and he literally went all the way through. The only real upset we had was Spencer was able to take down Dylan on Kayo, and that's not really an upset in the truest sense because it was the 4-5 match, right? So Spencer went through on, like I said, on the 4-5, and then went down to Ponkash, and in a really great game, actually. Because about halfway through the game, I was like, oh, I think this is over. And then it went like another 20, 25 minutes and not of stalling, of like actual gameplay, right? So that was pretty impressive. And then Arthur Mills, that's a tough match, right? That's a tough match for Ranger. At some point, you're out of poppers, and, well, that's how it goes. But yeah, I mean, the bracket kind of speaks for itself. There's not a lot of like huge stories out of the bracket. I wish I could tell you there were. There's not a bunch of huge stories out of the bracket because everything just kind of went the way it did. If you were, unfortunately, we had the Tristan Justin game on stream, and I say unfortunately because that was not good TV. It was a whooping, right? It was like I think it was 40-0 or 38-0 or something like that. It was rough. It was rough. But the match between Tristan and Pankaj at the end was a really good match. It was a really good championship match, so I was really, really happy about that. Right. So as far as the rest goes, hopefully you've been enjoying the slides as we've been going through this. It was a really good community event. We have gotten down the kind of the formula at Gongaii, at least. I've gotten down the formula kind of at least that seems to make at least the internet's happy on terms of pricing. I still wish it didn't have to be so top heavy to not take negative internet feedback. But I guess that's just what the Flesh and Blood, the vocal people in the Flesh and Blood community want, right? We returned just shy of $1,000 in pricing and that's just in gift card, like store credit. And then obviously everyone who signed up get 2 packs. I really wish that we could do more leveling so that it didn't feel so top heavy. But you got to give the kids Got to give the kids what they want. So I wish there was a better solution to that to make it feel like more of a community event without getting the negative feedback. But it is what it is. So anyway, I think that's about it. 10, 15 minutes into this. Again, I really want to encourage you to go look at the stream. I was personally very happy with how the stream went yesterday. I mean, there were probably mistakes on there, and don't worry, the kids will point it out, right, on the comments and stuff. But by and large, I thought the play went well. I was really impressed with the vast majority of the games, seemed to go very well, and hopefully people enjoyed it. So anyway, that'll do it for today. I'm sorry, not sorry about the lists, but those people probably aren't here at this point anyway. But it's just not fair. It's just not fair to release people's lists mid-weekend, right, when they're going to other RTNs. And people drove down to come here. It's just not fair. So it is what it is. I'll try and get some interviews as I can. They may or may not happen because I haven't reached out yet. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. Again, if you were there yesterday, thank you. It was really good crowd. No major issues. Oh, actually, one thing I do need to comment on, and this is not like negative feedback for the field, but there were so many judge calls yesterday. I've never seen this many judge calls in an event like that, or at least that one that I've run. And even Phil was like, I think there's like been a lot of judge calls. And that's not, that's not negative feedback. It's just, I think it just speaks to A, the level of competition, and then B, just the level of complication and interactions and stuff like that, right? Like we got a lot of judge calls. The Prism one there was a lot of judge calls on the Prism deck, but a lot of the other judge calls we got were just like order of triggering. And we had some interesting, so there were 2 times where I got judge calls where I didn't understand why they were asking the question they were, right? So for example, I had one called where they had the opponent, so the person who judge called had Balance of Justice in play, right? The new headpiece that lets you draw. If your opponent's drawn 2, it lets you draw. So the opponent had Blood Rushed, and then they played Wild Ride. And Balance of Justice could have been popped in response to playing Wild Ride before Wild Ride resolved, right? I understand not wanting to play it on the Blood Rush because you don't know, right? You don't necessarily need to draw a card to defend with or embolden your hand if they don't have, the nuts to keep going on you, right? So I understand not popping it then, but then when the opponent plays Wild Ride, there's the window between play and it attacking. And the judge call was, okay, now that it's attacking, can I pop Balance in between it drawing and discarding? The answer is obviously no, that's not the right window. But there would have been a window after the KO, or actually no, there wouldn't have been a KO trigger in that case. But either way, there were multiple windows in which they could have popped to draw, and they were very specifically adamant about drawing at that exact time in between. And it's stuff like that I don't, clearly it shows my lack of intelligence on playing Flesh and Blood, because I don't understand, when I get calls like that, I don't understand, and I don't understand why. It's very hard for me to not think that there's angle shooting going on, right? So I do wonder how much of that was present. And again, that's just me getting... All right, sorry about that. That was from the wife. I've got to go. So let's wrap this up. Thank you all for tuning in, and go Commando.